Aphid invasions. Aphids are tiny, soft-bodied insects that treat your garden like an open buffet. They gather in thick clusters on the tenderest new stems of your plants. Once they settle in, they use their needle-like mouths to pierce the tissue and suck out the nutrient-rich sap. What makes them so destructive is how fast they multiply. A single female can clone herself, dropping up to 80 live offspring in just a week. As this growing army drains the sap, you will start to see the visible damage. The new leaves turn yellow, pucker up, and curl tightly inward. This stunts the plant's growth entirely. You can stop them quickly by spraying the leaves with a cheap, insecticidal soap. The soapy water breaks down their outer shell and suffocates them on contact, saving your plants before the damage becomes permanent. Powdery mildew. It looks like someone dusted your plants with flour. This is a common fungal disease that thrives when days are warm and nights are cool. People have fought this dusty nuisance in agricultural crops for centuries. When spores land on a vulnerable leaf, they spread a white, powdery film across the surface. As this chalky coating thickens, it completely blocks out the sun. The plant can no longer perform photosynthesis. The leaves eventually curl up, turn yellow, and drop to the dirt. You can stop it fast with a cheap home remedy. Just mix a tablespoon of baking soda into a gallon of water and spray the leaves. This simple mixture changes the surface pH, making it too alkaline for the fungus. It kills the mildew almost overnight. Keeping leaves clear of this dust matters because a plant cannot feed itself if it cannot catch the sun. Spider mite webs. These are the tiny silk structures spun by microscopic relatives of spiders that feed on your plants. Measuring just 1/50th of an inch long, these pests thrive in hot, dry conditions. They use sharp mouthparts to puncture plant cells and suck out the sap. You usually do not notice them until a massive colony is already established. To protect themselves, they spin fine silk threads across leaves and stems. As they drain the plant's vitality, the leaves turn yellow and take on a speckled, dusty look covered in webbing. This matters because an unchecked infestation will eventually kill the plant. Luckily, prevention is easy. Simply misting your garden regularly with water raises the humidity and ruins their dry habitat. If they do settle down, coating the leaves with a cheap horticultural oil smothers them and protects your harvest. Fungus gnats. These are those tiny black flies you see hovering around your houseplants. They usually show up because you are overwatering. When houseplant soil stays constantly wet, it creates the perfect breeding ground. An adult female gnat can lay up to 200 eggs in that soggy top layer of soil. Once they hatch, the tiny larvae crawl around just beneath the surface. They feed on fungi in the damp earth, but they also chew right through your plant's tender roots. Soon your plant will look wilted or yellow, even though it has plenty of water. Fortunately, you do not need expensive chemicals to fix this. Just mix 1 part standard 3% hydrogen peroxide with 4 parts water. Pouring this highly affordable solution into the soil makes it fizz on contact. The bubbling instantly kills the larvae without harming your plant, leaving behind nothing but pure water and oxygen. Whitefly swarms. Whiteflies are tiny, moth-like insects that gather in massive numbers on the undersides of leaves. In the late 1980s, a strain called the silverleaf whitefly swept through farms, causing millions in crop damage. Today, they are still a common backyard nuisance. They feed by piercing plant tissue and sucking out the sap. As they eat, they transmit serious plant viruses from one host to another. They also secrete a sticky waste called honeydew. When you brush against an infested plant, a cloud of tiny white bugs flutters into the air. Meanwhile, that honeydew coats the leaves, fueling a black sooty mold that blocks sunlight. You cannot ignore them, but the fix is simple. A basic spray of dish soap and water breaks down their waxy protective coating, completely eliminating the swarm. Black spot disease. It is a notorious fungal infection that heavily targets popular garden plants like roses and tomatoes. The trouble starts when microscopic spores land on wet leaves and begin to grow. If you fail to treat these early signs, the fungus rapidly multiplies and overtakes the plant. You will first notice small, dark circles with yellow halos appearing on the lower leaves. Soon, those infected leaves turn completely yellow and drop off. Within weeks, a healthy plant can lose all of its foliage, leaving behind bare, weakened stems. You can stop this by applying an inexpensive preventative spray containing neem oil. The oil simply coats the leaves and stops the fungal spores from germinating. Identified by botanists back in the 1800s, controlling this common fungus still matters today. If you want to keep your backyard plants alive and producing, scale insects. You might look at your favorite plant and think those waxy bumps on the stems are just natural tree bark. But those little domes are actually scale insects. They anchor themselves to the stems, secrete a hard shield over their bodies, and stay put. Underneath that protective armor, they insert tiny straw-like mouthparts into the plant tissue to drink the sap all day long. Eventually, you will notice the leaves turning yellow, wilting, and dropping off as the plant starves from the constant drain. You cannot just spray them with normal bug killer because their hard shells block the poison. Instead, you can suffocate them. Spraying a cheap dormant oil completely coats the branches, penetrates their armor, and clogs up their breathing pores. This classic gardening trick stops the damage and saves your plant. Hidden mealybugs. These are tiny, soft-bodied insects that look like little tufts of white cotton on your plants. Farmers have fought these pests since the early 1800s when they were first identified damaging citrus groves. Mealybugs love to wedge themselves deep into the tight joints where leaves meet the stem. Once settled, they pierce the plant tissue and suck out the nutrient-rich sap. As they feed, they excrete a sweet liquid called honeydew. This sticky coating quickly draws in trails of hungry ants. As a result, your plant starts to look droopy, yellow, and exhausted. To stop them, simply spray the white fluff with a mix of rubbing alcohol and water. The alcohol instantly melts away their protective waxy coat and wipes them out. Stopping them matters because these quiet sapsuckers will eventually kill your plant. Rust fungus. Rust fungus is a common airborne disease that attacks the leaves of many different plants. The problem starts when microscopic spores blow in on the wind and land on damp foliage. Once they settle, the spores germinate and steal nutrients straight from the plant's cells. Ancient Romans actually prayed to a rust god, hoping to save their wheat from this. As the fungus grows, you see powdery orange-brown bumps breaking through the leaves. Eventually, the foliage turns yellow, shrivels, and drops off. To stop the spread, you coat the leaves with an affordable sulfur-based spray. You can also dissolve aspirin in water for a homemade treatment. The aspirin triggers the plant's natural immune defenses, helping it fight off the infection. This still matters today because it offers a simple way to save our gardens. Thrip damage. Thrips are tiny, slender insects, often less than a millimeter long, that feed on indoor and outdoor plants. Fossil records show these bugs have been around since the Permian period, surviving millions of years. When a thrip lands on a leaf, it uses its asymmetrical mouthparts to punch a microscopic hole into the plant tissue. Once it slices through the outer layer, it sucks out the liquid contents inside. You usually will not see the fast-moving bugs right away, but you will notice the aftermath. As the drained plant cells fill with air, the leaves develop distinct silver streaks. New growth often emerges twisted and deformed. Managing them quickly is crucial to plant health. A low-cost spinosad or neem oil spray easily targets these pests, saving your garden before the damage becomes irreversible. Leaf miners. These are tiny insect larvae, usually from a family of flies called Agromyzidae, that live entirely inside your plant leaves. A female fly lands on a plant and can lay up to 250 eggs right under the leaf surface. When the eggs hatch, the tiny larvae start chewing through the soft tissue sandwiched between the top and bottom layers of the leaf. Since they are protected inside the leaf structure, no regular bug spray applied to the outside will reach them. As they eat, they leave behind long, squiggly white trails or pale blotches that look like someone drew tiny maps all over your plants. You have to stop them before they start. Spraying an affordable preventive coating like neem oil stops the adults from laying eggs, which is why early defense remains crucial. Neem oil solution. This is your ultimate all-in-one cheap spray to prevent and treat almost every garden mistake. Neem oil comes from the seeds of the neem tree, native to India. To make it work, you need the right mix. You take 1 gallon of warm water, add 1 tablespoon of pure cold-pressed neem oil, and mix in a teaspoon of mild liquid dish soap. The soap acts as an emulsifier, letting the oil and water actually blend. You shake it up in a garden sprayer and coat your plants from top to bottom. Make sure to soak the undersides of the leaves where bugs hide out. When pests eat your plants, the oil stops them from feeding or growing. It also forms a barrier that smothers fungal spores. This inexpensive mixture keeps your entire garden safe without relying on harsh chemicals.